Welcome back to my channel. I'm Melanie. I'm very happy you're here. Today we're going to talk about my favorite book of 2019. To start with, first of all, I'm not really good at saying, oh, this is a 9, this is my 10th book, this is my 7th favorite books, and then coming up to my first book. I try to do it and it's quite impossible for me, but I managed to put my favorite books in 2 categories that I call my favorite book of the year that I really like this year, and my favorite of all time, which are books that I think I would love all my life. I'm gonna start with my favorite of this year, and in no particular order, I'm just gonna take them as they come. So this is Mistborn, first era, and my favorite book of the cycle of this era. You have The Final Empire, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages, and my favorite one is the first one, The Final Empire. So if you don't know about it, it's a series written by Sanderson. It's a high fantasy, so it doesn't happen in this world, it's a completely made up world. Where basically the bad guy won 1,000 years ago and everything is going wrong. You have the people are divided into social class, so you have the nobles who have a great life, and you have the ska who are enslaved and are under the orders of the nobles. So this novel, you follow two main characters. One is Vin, a teenager who grew up in the capital city, and the other one is Kelsier, who is at the head of a rebellion group, and he's trying to bring down the Almighty Lord. Great series. The world building is wonderful. Check this out. The second one is a book which is part of the La Passe Miroir series. So you have 4 books. You have the first one, Les Fiancés de l'Hiver, which is A Winter's Promise in English. Then you have Les Disparus du Clair de Lune. The third is La Mémoire de Babel, and the fourth, which just came out in France, is La Tempête des Échos. And of course, the one I want to talk to you about, I don't have it with me. La Mémoire de Babel, it's the green one. I really like this story. It's quite different to read a fantasy in French, I think. I think it does a lot of things different than the other fantasy that I read this year. To tell you about the story, the earth doesn't exist as it used to. It's crumbled down, and only a few places are still orbiting around the center of the earth. So you have 21, I think, and in each arch you have a god who has a certain power and gives this power to the people who are living around him. So you follow a little teenage girl who is called Ophélie, and she has been betrothed to a man from another arch, which is quite far away. His name is Thorn, and she lives quite a quiet life. Her power is to read object when she puts her hands on it, so she can know the past of the object and who hold it before her and the emotion of the person before her. Her power is quite cool. And on top of that, she can pass through mirrors. She's quite independent, and she doesn't want to get married, and she's being forced into this marriage with a man who is from a far away country from where she grew up. Basically, she's not going to be able to go back to her family when she's married to that man, and they don't know a lot about what's going on in the other places. So it's quite scary. So this is the premise of the first book. And then in the second and the other books, you go to different places and you see other powers and how they are used, and you know more about how the world became that way, and what really are the gods of those families. And yeah, I really like it. And the third one is my favorite because she spent a lot of time in a big library, so yeah. Then I have Born a Crime by Trevor. It's a book retracing his life, where he grew up in South Africa, and he's telling all the stories of his family, and he was born from a black mother and a white father, which was forbidden during the apartheid in South Africa, and so they had to hide him during his first years of life, which is quite dramatic and could be very dramatic reading about it, but he brings so much humor into it, and it's so funny, the stories he tells, that yeah, it's a beautiful book. I recommend it to all the people around me, and if you can check it out on audiobook, he's narrating himself his book, and it's, oh my god, so funny. And the last book of the favorite of this year is another Brandon Sanderson. It's Alloy of Law. It's the second era of Mistborn. It's the same world as the Final Empire, but it's 1,000 years later or 500 years later, I can't remember, after what happens in the last book, Heroes of Ages. So it can be quite spoilery if you haven't read the other era before, but it's the same world and the same powers. In the second cycle of the book, it's much more Western vibe, so they have horses, they have guns, and we're following two male characters in this one, and they're super funny, and it's basically like they love to nitpick on each other, and yeah, I really like this one. That's it for my favorite of the year. Now onto my favorite of all time, and I've been through a Harry Potter reread, so here it is. And I didn't know if I wanted to put it in there because of course I love Harry Potter like almost everybody else, but I wanted to talk to you about the fourth one, the Goblet of Fire. I have my French edition here with me. It's here because it really wasn't one of my favorite when it first came out. When I was growing up, I read the first three because they were already out when I found the books, and then I waited for the fourth and the fifth and blah blah. And when I read the fourth, I was like, I wanted more, I wanted something else, and so it was never one of my favorite. And then the movie didn't make it easier on me because so many things are missing in the movie compared to the book. The other reread that I've done before, I always used to skip the fourth one because I didn't like it. But this time I was like, oh, it's been so long, I'm gonna see, because I'm sure I've missed so many clues, so many foreshadowing. And wow, so many things happen in this books. In this one, it's amazing. I found an all new love for the Goblet of Fire. I will see once I finish reread all the books, but I think it's growing on me and becoming one of my favorites. So it's very funny. Another one of my favorite of this year that I haven't got with me, it's the 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. It's kind of a gothic, a bit thriller story about an old lady. She's a bestseller author, and nobody knows anything about her. She's in her 70s. She rarely does interview, but when she does, she always tells lies about her life, and she invents herself a new life. So nobody really knows who she is and what her life really is. And one day, a woman that has a bookstore, and on the side she writes a biography, receive a letter from Viona Winter, I think her name is, the author. She received a letter from this old lady telling her that she wants to tell her life story to her. She questioned, why me? Is she really going to tell me the truth? And she decided to go ahead and just go and see what it's all about. And that's all I'm gonna say. So, and basically it's a story about a haunted house, twins, creepy. It's amazing. I want to reread it quite soon because wow, I loved the world, the atmosphere of this book. So we're back at it. I just had to change my memory card, so the light has changed. Next book is Layers of Dream, which is part of the Diviners series. You have the Diviners, Layers of Dreams, Before the Devil Breaks You, and in beginning of 2020 you have the Kings of Crows, who is coming out. I've read all those books at the end of the year on audiobook, and I love them, especially Layers of Dreams. So basically the setting is 1920 New York. You're following a cast of maybe 10 different teenagers going through different phases of their life and figuring out who they are in New York City in 1920s. And the story is very spooky, very creepy, paranormal. You have ghosts, very creepy cadavers coming up in the stories, people going missing, and those teenagers don't really know each other at the beginning of the books, and they become friends, and they get interested in those disappearances, in those crimes, and they try to solve it. They figure out that something quite unnatural is happening, and they try to solve it. And you follow different point of views, all those characters at the same time, and you start understanding that they have powers, but they don't really speak about it to the other ones. In each book you follow more of two characters. You still follow all of them, but you have more of certain characters. And in the second one you follow Henry, who is from New Orleans, and Ling, who is part Chinese, part Irish, and grew up in Chinatown in New York. And it's the story of how they become friends through their powers and get to solve another mystery. Come and you check it out. On to my last two ones. Those ones I can rate them 1 and 2. So you have the second one, which is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which is a YA science fiction. You follow Spencer, who wants to become a pilot, but the problem is that her dad was a very famous pilot, but he had a coward move and died during an attack. So basically the humans are on a little rocky planet, and under attack by we don't know who. For over 10 years they've been stuck on this planet and cannot get out. And so the people who are flying the spaceship and fighting those invaders are very important for the survival of the whole humanity. It's super interesting. The story is very engaging. You follow Spencer trying to go to the pilot school, and some characters in there are very, very funny. Because it's YA, it's quite funny and light, but still the story is doing something very important. So this is the first book in a series. The second one that just came out is called Starsight, and there's gonna be 4 books in total. Now my favorite of all year. I just finished it 2 days ago, but it bumped up every other book and became one of my favorite of all time right away, and it's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I don't know if you need any introduction for this book, because it's an American classic that a lot of people know about, and because the movie is coming out at the end of the year, you must have heard about it so much already. But basically we're following 4 sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth and Amy, as they grew up and how as they become women in this world. I think it's set in the 1880. It's what strikes me is that everything that's happening to those girls, and everything that's that they're trying to figure out, it's still really modern. It really speaks to me as well. Even though it was written more than a century ago, it's still problems that we encounter. So yeah, I fell in love with those girls. It's nothing big or tragic happened to them, but they're just going through life and discovering themselves, and I love growing up with them and seeing through their eyes everything that they go through, and finding out, becoming wiser and becoming more understanding of everything. And I think my favorite characters has to be Marmee, their mom. She loves her girls so much, and she's so wise in the advice that she give her girls, and the way that she loved them unconditionally and for what they are. Truly, she sees them for who they are and what they are, and she's not trying to put any expectation on them. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see. I think it was written and published at first as 2 books, but now it's mostly bind-ups that we can find. The first book is more their teenage year, and the second book is more their young adult life. So yeah, if you please, every teenage girl, every young girl, read this. It's amazing. That's it for my favorites of this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a comment if you read any of those books, and leave me a comment with your favorite of this year. What changed your reading life this year? And I see you in another video. Oh, I'm gonna do a review for Little Women, so probably see you in that video. Thank you very much for staying through this whole video, and see you soon. Bye!